Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Museu Picasso Málaga. It's an honor as the artistic directors of this museum to welcome you in the inauguration, which is something which is very special for us. The first international seminary organized by the Study Center of this museum entitled Surrealism and its Double. I want to thank Unicaja Foundation for its support in the research of the museum, the Málaga University for organization, and especially to the catedrátic Eugenio Carmona Anco, director of this cycle. Regrettably, Eugenio cannot be with us today, but we have a presentation welcoming you to many of the students that are here today. 15th October 2024, 1924, Andre Breton published the manifesto, Surrealist Manifesto, in which he says that he proposed surrealism oniric, poetic, and paradoxical as a form of expanding reality. 100 years after that manifesto, is still to define what is surrealism, but it is reflected in the vocabulary of nowadays in music, in poetry, and in popular culture. We can acknowledge three X's in its spirit: fascination for the organic, the natural, love for the archaic, the subconscious, the creation of collective myths that are able to give significance to the human experience. It was a way of thinking, of subversing the established norm. Picasso, and we will say it again here with the first people, it never formed part of the group, but it was one of the essential figures, artists and friends that were part of that group that generated also surrealism in Paris. Picasso reacted to its influence, created new languages, reacting, able to show the emotions, human emotions. Museu Picasso, in order to contextualize what surrounds Picasso, it's everything that surrounds him. This seminar has a very important significance, and actually you can visit until the 30th October the great retrospective curated by Isidro Hernández, which is present here on the artist Óscar Domínguez, born in Tenerife in 1906, a friend of Picasso, essential to understand surrealism in an international context of an avant-garde. Domínguez represents the surrealist spirit from Canary to Paris, the telluric and the modern, the oniric and symbolic. His work is full of unstable landscapes, impossible objects that you can see on the exhibition, ambiguous worlds. That's why it's so significant that we celebrate a seminary that wishes to tackle surrealism from an international perspective in a house dedicated to Picasso, but also in celebrating the retrospective of Óscar Domínguez. Having today, in this first session of the international seminar, two great experts in the work of Domínguez, as Emmanuel Guigon, director of Museu Picasso of Barcelona, and Isidro Hernández, a curator of the TIA, Espacio de las Artes in Canary Islands, is unique to start this story, this seminar. I'm convinced their view will widen the perspective of the galleries we have right now with all the issues they're going to put forward. This seminar, which will take place in 5 consecutive Wednesdays, coincides with our 22nd anniversary, and we think it's an opportunity to celebrate the museum with a look of 10 important speakers of different universities and museums that will end on the last Wednesday with Michael Fitzgerald, that we are able to see in Palacio Buenavista galleries. We want to rethink the history, international projection, explore transporter in character, and look again the complex relationship between Picasso and this movement. It's a privilege to bring this to Malaga and share it with students, professors, and lovers of art, because a museum has a duty to generate spaces of critical thoughts. Thanks for accompanying us, and I hope to see you on the next Wednesdays. Welcome to Museu Málaga, and I pass on to the video of Eugenio Carmona. Thank you. Dear friends, the beauty will be convulsive or it will not be at all. With these hard statements came Surrealism to change European and international culture. It is very sad that today the media and in daily conversations on the street, they use Surrealism to say something is absurd or is not understood, because the Surrealist movement was all the contrary. It was a proposal for the decisive emancipation of the persons and for the transformation of the world. This is why from Museo Picasso Málaga, Miguel López Remiro and myself have wanted to offer an international seminar in which to revisit Surrealism and the transforming experience of modern art in its best definition. Personal circumstances don't allow me to be here now today, but from here I want to greet especially all the attendees of the seminar, and very especially to the students of the University of Malaga, and just very, very much to the students of the subject of modern art. We'll see you each other in the class. What I regret more is not only be there today, but to lose the explanations of two very renowned persons reflecting on culture, which are Emmanuel Guigon and Isidro Hernández. They are not only very good friends, but they are two intellectuals with a long career and solid career, two poets which are at the pinnacle of the imaginary. And I think starting with them on this seminar is the best that could happen to us. See you soon.
Does it work? Yes, good afternoon. Dear Director, dear Miguel, dear Eugenio, for your kind words and for this nice introduction. Here you mentioned this sentence of that beauty will become convulsive or won't be. This is a Breton quote, and it will be erotic and fixed circumstances. We're going to speak a bit about this afternoon. I think about Breton. I remember right now a verse from a poem, The Layer of Water. There the beaches were of black sand. Óscar Domínguez arrived to Paris before joining the Surrealists. He was very active and he did many original creations within the decalcomanias, and as we will see. And Óscar Domínguez was the promoter of a Breton trip, Jean Perret, in May 35 in Tenerife, in Palmas de Gran Canaria. Promoted by the Second Republic magazine, and we will speak about it in this small promenade and this small path. We speak a lot about Picasso, his relationship with the world of objects. This realist Picasso and the world of objects, many books have been written about this. And it's Picasso that has been at the beginning of the poetry of the surrealist object Breton in several texts. Remembers seeing the cubist constructions in the Apollinaire, l'Histoire de Paris, the magazine, and this follow his reflection of the poetic object, the found object in his language and lost on the awakening. And we will deal about this today. And several titles I proposed. The Lichtenberg Sleepers, Lichtenberg and Domínguez, Lichtenberg, big philosopher of Germany. The poet appreciated very much of the time of the encyclopedia. Very skeptic, known because of his aphorisms, a great thinker. What can I say? His encyclopedia to remember. Who knows if in the future we will be universities, or we will have universities to reinvent our old incongruencies. This is a path of knowledge of how to name an object, because it can be named an object, as we will discuss this afternoon. I have 45 minutes, that's not a lot. I hesitated with another title. And Grisou, you can look in the internet, it can be translated, is the gas of the coal mines that provokes big explosions with many deaths. Grisou, this gas, is the title of a book that was never published in LGLM, in the editor, with an introduction of Breton, and the decalcomany is interpreted by Domínguez, which is a great friend of his. Grisou can also be a metaphor also of these times, dark times of the civil war of Spain, and just before the Second World War, that we're going to discover. We look before that, and I will try to improvise a small trip through this poetry. We'll start with the current events of Gaumont that you can see in 38, that summarizes an exhibition, not of the chant du cygne, because I was speaking about this bird in Domínguez, but it was the big exhibition of the second Surrealist time at the beginning of the 30s, an exhibition, an event where we see at the end of this 2-minute news a Domínguez item that I will discuss later. You can see this film later if you want. The Surrealism exhibition with all these items. We can see mannequins with a lot of personality. That's a short film. It's inedit about a discovery that we made recently after the lockdown on COVID in the Picasso Museum of Barcelona. These mono glasses of verglas that have a poetry of the objects very particular of Marcel Mérian that can indicate paths to explore this world of dreams. I was speaking about Grisou, this gas, the decalcomanies, and I will speak about a book that is essential of this time, published in the 40s. André Breton was working in the 30s, the anthology of the black humor, dark humor, with a different cover of Óscar Domínguez. It's a book made years ago about this decalcomania. And I bought this book recently with an advertising that I've never seen, the most explosive work of André Breton. And this is a proposal. Lichtenberg, we spoke about him at the beginning, and you can see a vision of an object, extraordinary, incredible to see it in 38. An exhibition in the year 38, impossible to make nowadays because of the safety measures. You can see Corsaline, the Swiss painter, emigrated to US, the Surrealist painter that also will be in the 40s with the American expressionist, abstract expressionist, and also the lighting rod. Power of the lighting rod. And the lighting rod power. Sorry, excuse my... It's something incredible. Just a second. I just forgot. Excuse me, I'm trying to find in my notes. This object, this lighting rod is here. So for the hanged man not to be electrified, is a black humor that you can see in this exhibition, that you see extraordinary many pictures of the time, with thousands of objects, many pink paintings, with the ceiling covered with coal bags from Marcel Duchamp, the floor covered by leaves of trees that are dry leaves, and all this creation, the fire that can start with an exhibition. We are in the hall of the second, we are just at the beginning, almost at the beginning of the World War. You can see four many paintings, and you can see paintings, radiograms of Harrybank, and that you can see at the exhibition right now here in Malaga. These are paintings or pictures of this exhibition. The mannequin, the very well-known mannequin of Óscar Domínguez. And in this exhibition, you find the object of Óscar Domínguez that we speak about, Never, the object named Never, that you can see Never was exhibited in the Gradiva Gallery with the doors of Marcel Duchamp, managed by Breton, and the other objects also were the in the abbreviated dictionary and in the reflections of the object. Óscar Domínguez arrives in year 34, and he created many objects in the gallery of Charles Raton in 36. He exhibited 7 objects. Among them, I think my secretary got the wrong photograph, but this object of the peregrination of George Huguet, Israel Sofia wanted to buy it. It was in a private company of Milan. A horse that crosses a bicycle structure. Also La Brouette Capitonnée, photographed by Man Ray. And also the arrival of the Belle Époque, a voyage to the infinite. Paris also is another object that can be seen in the exhibition. Picasso exhibits with the Surrealists in 24. It's all in the magazines mentioned, and he participated. I never found pictures where, but he went to the vernissage and with all his friends. And Picasso is a friend of Domínguez, very much, mainly from year 39. There are many quotes from Eduardo Bestorda, the director of the Canary Gallery, that is going to be a friend of Picasso from the 50s. 3 quotes of Domínguez in his letters confirm this complicity. Domínguez mentions, I strengthened my friendship with Picasso. There's a sensational man for this time of age. And Picasso, in 47, his friendship is highlighted as the letters develop. And he's the genius of the atomic age. And he's a very dear friend of mine. So obviously this relationship with Picasso and they loved each other very much. And just before Domínguez passed away, there's a picture of Picasso that he liked it to act a lot. He liked it from the Cubist time to disguise himself as an actor in the Cubist times, like a worker, like a bourgeois, like a painter, and beyond that, like the assassin Landru, and he also got dressed up as Domínguez, because many years they said Domínguez, and the end of Domínguez will imitate Picasso, and that's not the case. We could discuss this later if you wish, but Picasso was very close to Domínguez and loved him a lot. For the widow of Eduardo, who was the wife of Domínguez as well, and through Eduardo Estarval, we knew that Domínguez had offered this object of 38 to Picasso. But nobody knew about it. Preparing recently, just before the COVID exhibition of Picasso and pictures, I found these negatives. The Nick de Mogoli, a US for Paris Match, fashion actor and artist pictures. He did several shots of Picasso, Rue de Grand Augustin, where he painted the Guernica. He doesn't want Picasso, he doesn't like to have big houses, but he likes to have a lot of space, Picasso, because he kept everything, the tickets of food and everything. And you can see that there are many out of paperwork, and you can see also the object of Óscar Domínguez, and he's always smoking and looking daily at this object. And from this picture, I show Bernard, Paloma Picasso, and somebody, Jacqueline, finally recovered everything. In the 50s, there were, because he was not living, and the owner recovered everything and expelled him from this property. Marot intervened, but Breton left, thinking that that's nothing, it's something old from the market. It's a phonograph and it's worth nothing, but it's something silly. We found it and we restored it, and we did an exhibition just about this object with all the pictures of the time. This film was just found, all the newspapers where they mentioned the exhibition, an exhibition that was very much spoken in the international press, in El País, in Le Monde, and it was very, very interesting, very relevant. Why naming it Jamais, never, and why not? We published a small book that advise you about this object, written by George Shabak, a friend of ours, and we went together and we worked together in this. Convulsionnaire is a text, a convulsion, that Breton writes from the picture. The picture is not here, from Man Ray, and there is a quote, if I remember by her, making love with a text permanently, never. And we have discovered with the poetry of Breton in 19 and 19, not related to this object, Breton started his first poetry book, Mon Piété. These are objects, the Mont de Piété, the Monte de Piedad, the pawning shop where you put the object and you recover money if you pay for it, and a poem dedicated and fragmented where we can extract this quote distributed in 2 verses. Batista forever. A thin, very thin canvas. You can do a shirt, and that was in line with the last word of Mademoiselle, these ladies that sustained a Batista tissue. They promised their lover, swearing to love them forever, in à jamais in French. Baptiste and à jamais in French has such an impact to Louis Aragon, the surrealist inventor, that he decided instantly that in his novel Anise or the Panorama, he will call Baptiste à jamais his friend André Breton. It's possible to love somebody forever. This is the question that both surrealists, Aragon and Breton, make, and with this object of Domínguez as well. This painting of this picture of the exhibition in 2020, as you can see, and there were extension, they were very modern, and this book from Domínguez called The Souvenir, the Remembrance of the Future, the Memory of the Future, published in the year 38, The Path of the Dream, and dedicated to Freud that had to escape Austria. And you can see furniture with a curve that has a gramophone, and it's half swan, half woman, and has a and the legs are inside the coral of the gramophone. The Souvenir of the Future had a premonitory sense, announcing the imminent death of the dancer, which goes inside the gramophone, or the swan woman. How she melts with the gramophone, and this is the song, the ballad of the swan. 38 is a year where surrealist painting changes. Domínguez changes. It becomes more he goes more as André Breton with Roberto Mata. It's less figurative. He becomes Domínguez more abstract and more automatic. The same year, Domínguez paints this piece, Souvenir de l'Avenir. Is a masterwork where we can appreciate a small machine, typing machine with the keys that come out with a mineral landscape. Is one of the first paintings, lithochronic paintings of Domínguez, one of the first, and I think it's the best period of Domínguez, where he is more creative. Souvenir de l'Avenir expresses the intention of the painter of fighting against time. But the book and Breton, Jamais, reflects specifically something of this ballad of the swan, the woman that disappears inside the gramophone. The painting of Domínguez discovers the geological landscape layers with a cloud. Is not to represent time with an image, but showing the essence of time. A discovery of this summer in August, with while I gave a Tramontana private collection in Switzerland. Max and friend, a private, one of the most important collections, a big friend of Óscar Domínguez. Isidro has never seen it because he's never seen this, but Domínguez, a few hours before committed suicide on the 31st of December of 38, he sends to his friend Ernst, dear Ernst, this is the sign, the ballad of the swan, and what you can see in this inedit drawing of Domínguez, which he sent to his friend before dying. Here we can see the film we just seen, some drawings published in the press, some pictures, the Man Ray of Brighton Bar, many photographers. It's an exhibition that was very much spoken about in the international press. Until even the Nazi press mentioned it. This is a magazine, Nazi criticizing obviously, and it's quite racist. In the exhibition of the surrealist, maybe we got it wrong. It must be the the exhibition of the arts that we have got rid of. So we see all these pieces, we see the Lips of Man Ray, we see the gramophone, 2 paintings of Picasso, for example, Life with Gary Cooper, and we see Benjamin Perret with Remedios Varo, his wife, sitting on the ultra furniture of Culture Man and with a brown air painting behind her. The phonograph by an open bed. The vernissage, the opening, this invite is very nice. It's international exhibition on surrealism. We can see the red truffle and with surrealist ballerine Hélène Vanel, and maybe we should have an exhibition on her because she was a friend of Picasso in the 20s, feminist, activist, and we know a bit the actions, the performances that she did in the opening through the descriptions of the press that we have reviewed and that we mentioned in this book. This surrealist dancer, also the iris of the with all this smell of roasted coffee under this vault of coal bags. It has been opened this night. This article, Jamais, and the action of Hélène Vanel. A gramophone where you can see a lady's legs coming out, vaudeville, military vaudeville beds, and one of them, a fantastic singer and contortionist, Hélène Vanel, that fakes an epilepsy strike. This is the hysterical art. The same ballerina, and I read, interprets the red truffle as a piece where, with her body covered with she manipulates a live cockerel, and she creates with many jumps and leaps, with cutted music, birds squeaking. We could recreate this, but I'm not sure. I don't know whether we'll be allowed to recreate this. There are many articles on other media. I have 20 minutes. And just to summarize all of I highlighted the Cubist objects of Picasso that had an influence of Breton and other surrealists, and that will be mentioned as well in all these exhibitions. All of these pieces which will have a Peffner influence and contrasting means. In the preface of the first number of the on the December 24 this magazine, this preamble signed by Roger Bijard and Boifa states the adequation of the surrealist object. Any discovery that changes represents a surrealist fact. The manifesto of 24, signed 2 months before by Breton, focused specifically from the second sentence on the day-to-day objects. Breton, this dreamer, final dreamer, unhappy with their destiny, analyzed the difficulty from all angles and objects as well that they can use and that have been given to him. In 29, these objects, these perturbing objects, represent the pamphlet with a special number of Belga Variété. L'énigme d'Isidore Ducasse, mentioning, referring to this quote, nice like the fortuitous encounter of an umbrella and a sewing machine. and is reproduced with this first statement on the manifesto statement of the Surrealism. I was speaking about Variété, the magazine that starts definition, the perturbing objects, and this magazine is a Belgian magazine with this well-known transformed world map with ideology applied, where Russia is very big, for example, in this drawing. And it's very important in the definition. The abbreviated dictionary of the 38 that comes with the exhibition we just mentioned, integrated by a collection of quotes compiled by Edron Eloard, and defining Surrealism as an old fork of tin with the intention of a fork. And the Surrealism is a high status of subjectivity and takes the object, the ownership, and creates another one that is changing and perpetual. And about the tie of Nosferatu. For a long time we believed that the giraffe was a mixed animal with resulting from crossing a camel, a hyena, and other animals, a useless animal. And present in the black humor anthology of the book, deduced that it was an animal that was very high spiritually. Fourier mentioned, we can see, he wrote in his theory of the four movements, that God has not created anything that is useless. Even giraffes are a perfect useless item. But representing all our passions, God represented this animal, the complete useless truth of our civilization. And is also Dali also imagining in fire, Magritte in a glass, as we can see in this. Mimi Parent in a tie with her hair for the sign of Eros of the year 59. André Breton in an important book, The Communicating Vases, associates this tie. He dreams on the 1st of August about this tie. And Breton, in this same, he mentions about the science of dreams and the many questions. And the giraffe belongs to an heterodox family of objects like mannequins, for example. And somebody very important, and the relationship between words and objects, we can name an object, what's the difference, and how do we represent the object. In 29, and in very important year, is the arrival of Dali to Paris. Louis Aragon makes the theory, the painting closer to the object and to the collage, and Breton and Eloard publish in this last number of them was in their notes on the poetry, where they mention a Paul Valéry text to say poetry is a pipe, referring to the Magritte painting. In this same number, Magritte publishes Words and Images, 3 columns intercalated with drawings between comic book, and he was studying the relationships of objects with the words that were naming these words and representing these words. An object, he concluded, He's not so much linked to this word that we cannot find another one that may have a better name. Some objects don't precise a name, or even in a painting, words have the same substance as images. So that's the surrealist version of the treating of images illustrated in the ABC de Clés des Songes that I've seen in Switzerland, the same collection of Óscar Domínguez. It's a very important and famous painting, this ABC book with all this, an egg that is named Acacia, a shoe named Lune, a glass that is called Orange, etc. In a Brussels magazine, Paul Nouget, a theorist of surrealism, he writes about this painting. It's a melody, it's a poetry machine that works depending on the denomination, or maybe a manifestation of rebelliousness against words. This painting makes you think very deeply. Nouget, the theorist of with Louis Turner, Magritte is a great painter, but Magritte is not a painter. And this paradox is all the poetic mystery, it's not illustration about Magritte. He used to, Paul Nouget thinks about the subversion of the images, where he creates from situations that are familiar to us things that are enigmatic, removing objects. For example, you can see Marcel Lecomte, the poet, with closed eyes. He writes with no pen, and the A of love, of absence. And I think a lot about this film, de Marcel Bruter. He writes with a pen, and under the rain, and the text disappears at the same time he's writing. Our two friends, Magritte, and having a toast with no glasses. You have to read the Mad Love of André Breton about his trip to Tenerife, and there's a chapter about the meetings with objects in the market. And he's with Giacometti. It's important in the creation of these objects, surrealist objects, all these objects. And Giacometti was looking for a solution to create the face of this object, invisible. The title names was not represented. The hands of this sculptor is a capital piece of Giacometti, and through a mask of the 14th World War, it's sort of medieval. It's against gas, this mask, and to protect yourself against the grisou gas. And Cocteau, he finds these slippers, which corresponds to an object that he had dreamed, the ashtray that he had to. He told Giacometti to create an object, and he never did it. So it's all a reflection on the equivalent. A found object in a market, an object that is dreamt of. I'm gonna go faster. As you can see, we've seen here that the head of the bull in 41 from Picasso, when he receives a present from Óscar Domínguez, and he named it in French, which is if you play with fire, you get burned. Passion, considered as a mountain. Afregerie, the author of Le Bourret, present, he plays Jesus Cristo to escalate this quite the Golgotha Mount, charging the bicycle, or like if it was his cross. It's a text, wonderful, with a lot of humor and undertone. Conceive a surrealist object of the symbolic functioning from a seat of the bicycle. And Picasso, he made the bull head with the bicycle seat and and in 52 in the Swiss magazine there was a photograph in a hairdresser. You could see many bees covering a bicycle seat, and this was published in Medium, in this magazine, the Surrealist magazine Medium. A selection of objects for a chapter that I call the Surrealist object as an interest. The crisis of the objects are an essential text written about the exhibition of Lagariche on the Gallery Breton in 1936. Breton revealed that the object was in question. I was ready to weight the multiplication of these objects, a depreciation of those whose usefulness agreed, even if it's discussable, will be open to the real world. This depreciation seemed to me able to release the inventive forces that once we know is when we know about fear, and having highlighted the honorific object contact with solidificate beyond the creation of these objects, the objectivation of the activity of the fear transferring into reality was. And the truth is an object is never identical to itself. The object can become an index of uncertainty that can be extended to any other object. It's a mixture of irons, of mind ray, a double articulation of a telephone and a combination of a phonograph and a leg, from like Óscar collage of fur and a cab, which is the breakfast in fur. It's an object that the MoMA of New York bought in 1936, or an umbrella and foam through Volvan Palen. Often these objects are oxymorons with opposed qualities. The presence of man ray is something to break clothes, because it's an iron with screws, and the umbrella is not going to save you from rain. It's just going to absorb the water. Coming back to Magritte, a colleague of mine, the keys. This is a small translation I did from a book, from paintings, pictures from Bernard Plossu. Receive Magritte. Revisit Magritte. Waters agitated, deep water. The river is mysterious often and sometimes very dangerous because we can't draw. And you will see why. Dreaming on water can mean also dreaming about erotism. You can see in the painting from the reflex of Suzanne, for example, in a letter of Magritte to Eloise. I've also painted a painting called The Kiss. It's a landscaping with no interest. It's just Magritte. It's just, it occupies the middle of the painting, except from an opening in the middle of the landscape. And this perspective is surrounded by objects: a stone, then a sphere, then a piece of wire, a stick on the floor, and then you don't distinguish very well. It's a new alphabet that paints the Paul Nouget title. What is the kiss about? We will remember the dialogue from Jean Gabin and Michel Morgan, than the K of the in 1938, and In French, Jean Gabin, he says, "You have beautiful eyes, kiss me," and they kiss. In this same film, we find this replica about the power of images. Jean Gabin dressed as a painter because he's trying to escape because he kills somebody. So, are you painting? I'm painting things that are hidden behind things. He's by the sea. A swimmer is already somebody that has drawn, and it's a nature morte, it's a dead, it's like a dead nature. We go back to Lichtenberg and to his slippers. Ma gouvernante de Meret, which seems like a chicken, but there are shoes transformed into a dish. He named each of his, and this aphorism from Lichtenberg highlights his closeness, the closeness we have, the love we have for certain objects that are perceived like people or pets. Surrealist objects included the found objects has a specific title that makes them unique. Without the support of your slippers, Lichtenberg, would he be able, how this list of objects found in the Minotaur magazine, the mobile bed, the knife with no blade, the instrument to trepanate yourself, and the lighting rod, hanging rod, all these objects. Well, I'm gonna be on my time. Thank you very much.
¿Qué hacemos?
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, Jean, for your conference. Now we'll have a break of 30 minutes to take a coffee at the tree, so the people following the seminar line. For those people, we will start again, resume at 6:30. Thank you. Yo. Now we resume this first day of the seminar with Isidro Hernández, curator of TEA, Art Space in Tenerife, with his conference, Óscar Domínguez, At the Pinnacle of the Imaginary. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for attending. This encounter, this cycle is an honor for me. It's a pleasure. And it's a double pleasure to find good friends and be here with Emmanuel Guigon and talk to him. And I've been very lucky to share from many years ago conversations on surrealism on Domínguez. We have visited the black sand beaches in Tenerife together in the company of great friends as George Sebac, or Nilo Valenzuela, or José Miguel Pérez Corrales. So, above all, I want to thank all the team of the Picasso Museum of Malaga that has had a very exquisite and professional treat and very, very close, which is enthusiastic project on the retrospective of Óscar Domínguez. In the beginning, I thought that At the Pinnacle of the Imaginary could be a title that could include all his career. But then we decided to state his name, Óscar Domínguez, and we have this exhibition until the 13th October. So we've achieved to present a world of objects that attest the career of this man, that was many men at the same time, many painters at the same time as Óscar Domínguez. I want to thank the Picasso Museum of Malaga, Miguel López Ramiro, artistic director, also director of these conferences, along with Eugenio Carmona, a professor, a friend in which we have dialogued a lot about Óscar Domínguez. Eugenio Carmona is an impulse also, and he has been very fond of Óscar Domínguez as well. He is one of the persons that has attained the iconographic power of Óscar Domínguez. So we are very lucky to have him at the University of Malaga. So thanks to the team of Picasso Malaga Picasso Museums, to administration, to all the work done in terms of communication, Maria Jose Valverde, facing didactic and pedagogy department, Abolafio, was also coordinating this project. In sum, let's start with the images and who was this figure, this character, Óscar Domínguez. He was born in Tacoronte in 1906. We see him in a photograph by Eduardo Westerdal on 1933. In those rural lands in the island of Tenerife, year 1906, a young man that was born in that context that will spend his childhood, especially in Tacoronte, and that will nurture of those images of a very primitive nature, generous and insular nature. It has an urban connotation, surrealism. We have mentioned by Emmanuel Guigon some characters of Belgian surrealism, Paris, Brussels, Prague, London. They were cities that at their way were surrealists on its own way, with their own differences, but with a lot of activity. However, we see that the strength of Domínguez lies on the difference and the on the far, the origin of the Canary Islands. Domínguez introduces to Breton in the year 34 with this letter. It's very interesting. I am a painter of the Canary Islands, and I come here so you give me some minutes to talk to you, to show you these paintings I'm wearing on my traveling suitcase. He was in Paris. His father has sent him on the 27th to deal with his fruit business exportations, but Domínguez was thinking about Bohemia and the night in Paris, the world of color and of what everything that implies that great city. What paintings in that year, 34, when he had spent several years in Paris, could have showed Domínguez to Breton? Well, I imagine that some of these works, this type of paintings, where we perceive that the insular element of nature is very present. Those horizons, long distance horizons that are fluid in the space, that mix together, embrace each other, that start opening, so see of the elements that cut the space, that allow to open the elements and are flourishing. This type of paintings had to do undoubtedly with those sceneries of the young Óscar Domínguez. Here is a figure of the castle that his father built in the northern area of Tenerife, in the beaches of Guayonte. So if we visited now this place and we looked over to the horizon, we could recognize some of the paintings of the young Óscar at the time. On the 30s, the piano of 1933 would be one of those paintings of the first Surrealism, very much Dalinian space style. You would recognize those melted watches of Dali paintings that melt with the landscape. So he actually, those volcanic forms, he appropriates that and take them to the painting, and he take those shapes. His original place, his territory, the volcanic, capricious windfall of the landscape. It suits him very much, this type of paintings with soft shapes, adopting landscape morphologies. I also think that another of the paintings he could have shown Óscar Domínguez to Breton could be thus reminiscent of my island from 1934. See the Aboriginal motif, a Wanchi woman on top of a water piano with a dragon tree. So I have seen that on La Alameda. There are beautiful dragon trees, and they are not as big as in the northern area of Tenerife, but there are species here that are very nice. Well, in this imaginary and magical space, the painting contains a reflection and poses a question about the time before the primeval times of the inhabitants of the islands, pre-Hispanic inhabitants. So it's a component that will set a difference radically, a great part of the paintings of the 30s, and he will renew them. When we talk about a painting, Dalinian painting, there is a great difference that we recognize in that tradition by other Spanish painters, because he has made a lot of contributions with the insular theme. We see him with some friends in that black sand beaches in northern Tenerife, the magical condition of the islands and the Breton set. Let's think about the great adventures novels where the mysterious happens in an island. The island offer us, in contrast with what the continent can offer us, the mystery factor, a place where mysterious things happen. There are elements to discover. So it has this character far from the time, from the watches, this primeval. This image, for me, is quite moving. Somehow I have felt this. I have been Óscar Domínguez. I have been on top of a black stone on a black sand beach, looking at the horizon. So when we see the painting of Óscar Domínguez, there is a component of the painting of Óscar Domínguez that make us participate of his vital experience in this natural and initial context of insular nature. Say how it appears, plains, and with an element very, very relevant in Domínguez, which is metamorphosis, how mountains morph those siphons and oxygen bombs that are like kind of issuing like mud, effluvios. We have another painting called Siphons, where we see an interconnection between dragon trees and siphons, where they exchange their qualities. And Domínguez likes including these elements that are objects which are defying their original function. So you can see those spaces as I say, a dreamlike spaces, the sea of clouds, the beaches of black sand, the magical condition of the islands. And here, one of the paintings we have in the exhibition, butterflies lost in the mountain. You can see Aboriginal woman on the peak of a mountain worshipping the fly of butterflies in a magical world. See how there is again the insular element with this magic. It really surprised me while walking on Madrid that there was how they have decided to hang posters saying, "Let yourself be captivated" for the new presentation of the collection, and they had chosen those butterflies lost in the mountain. This is a sign that things are changing, and authors like Óscar Domínguez, that had always been a little bit apart from the canon of centrality of international surrealism, and that had a lot of presence, but it's true that at some points when they do collective exhibitions, he hasn't got the presence that we would like. And this is a symptom that things are changing. And now we know better the oeuvre of Domínguez. We have here Domingo López Torres with a painting. It seems they're deciding what paintings to choose in a solo exhibition in 1933. We have the red ball there that we have in the exhibition now. At the center, another painting we have just seen. So it's a photograph which is truly beautiful, though we have some cut lines that open up the spaces and that are very present in the beginning of the 30s. The red ball is a piece that is in the exhibition. The critic Sarah Alexandria used to say this enigma of inspiration could be an eye excised from the eye socket that goes round the floor freely. There is something happening. There is a mechanism that is applying a cut. So this reading could be a little bit adventurous, dislocated, but we see that the film of Dali, Joan Buñuel, when there is the start, the start image of the cut on the eye, it could be a metaphor of the way of seeing that dream-like essence of the surrealist image, the visionary power of the image proposed by surrealism. Óscar Domínguez belongs to a moment in Canarias, which is the avant-garde moment. He's especially linked to Gaceta del Arte. It's an international magazine, one of the most important magazines of the Republican Spain, that started in 1932 and will take until 36. The Spanish War will interrupt the career of Gaceta del Arte. They are all almost poets. We have Salvedo, Agustín Espinosa, a great writer, López Torres, Eduardo Westerdal, of course, the director of that magazine. He was a correspondent of that magazine in Paris and made some notes on exhibitions. It was said that Gaceta del Arte was a surrealist magazine, but not. No, it is open to anything new going on in the Europe of the times. We have the rationalist structure. We have reflections on theater of Epistato. We have drawings of Santiago Santana. We have the magic realism of Franz Roh, his painting. We can see it here, 2 covers, an essential book for some painters of the painting of that time, like Scorchiorama. There are signs of a painting which is not surrealist, that belongs to the avant-garde painting, the new objectivity that actually is fed from the new realism that propagates in Europe. Scorchioramas, where light becomes matter and leaves the objects in that timeless space. This magazine is involved in all the new currents. We have here the number on the year 35, an important event, the Surrealist exhibition in Tenerife, in Ateneo de Santa Cruz, with André Breton at the center of the image, to her side Jacqueline Lambat, Eduardo Westerdal, the poet Benjamin Berel López Torres, and to this side on white, and then Poeta de la Rosa. And there are marvelous pieces of Miró that it was in a museum in Oslo. We have Magritte, Picasso, Valentin Hugo, over Eduardo Westergal. It's an exhibition of international names. First order surrealism that they took in their traveling suitcase, and it was a subversive event on the Santa Cruz de Tenerife in the year 35. Not very far from the place where an exhibition takes place, in the place of Cabo Panos. There are people carrying bananas on boxes, hardly wearing clothes. There was a lot of social difference in the island. There wasn't collectionism that could allow that any of the paintings remained in Tenerife, which is a pity. We can see it in any of the international exhibitions. We see Breton on the balcony of the Surrealist exhibition. It's a mythic image, presents an object, and this Guanche on vacation, or Summer Desire, is an enigmatic painting of surreal iconography, and we see how these walls of the landscape of the northern part of the island have dictated somehow the language of his painting. Domínguez also takes part in Gaceta del Arte, illustrating many of the works of the books on that parallel edition, edited by Gaceta. Have a look at the drawing of the Lichian kind of figures with those statues. We can see here some of the books. Or this may be the most important, Crimen edition. It's a poetic story written in a Spanish language, most important of the 1934. See that the image is like a double or triple image. It's a visionary image. Is it a boat? Is it it's quite an interrogatory to ascertain what it refers to, and it actually unveils several layers of interpretation in which the viewer has to dip in. He likes very much iconographic elements like can opener keys, and he plays in that sense is an element that keeps winding round and opening the inner part of the things, and in a playful manner he practices in an insistent way in many of the compositions of those years. This is a very important painting that was shown in a retrospective exhibition in 1996 in Reina Sofia. We see there is a leap there towards the horizon. We see that is actually shooting while he's taking the risk and the adventure of the open space. We see here the can opener, which is inserted in the image, is like an object painting somehow that we are very lucky to have in the exhibition. This is a very difficult loan that we have been able to contemplate these months. See how interesting Domínguez in that adventure with Gaceta del Arte as illustrator shares his drawings and illustrations and his painting and his paintings. When he gets obsessed with a motif, he does some variations and encounters, some disturbing encounters, undoubtedly in everything that he touches, that he manages. And also we find leaps, very interesting leaps in this procedure, decalcomania. If you look up in a dictionary of surrealism, you will find decalcomania. The inventor of decalcomania is a play at the reach of everyone. D'Autremont would say poetry should be done by everyone, not by one. So somehow he's opening up the possibility. He's democratizing the capacity to be poetry. So creation is at the reach of everyone. It's like doing a castle of sand in a beach of black sand. Decalcomania is a play you put ink in a surface that then you rotate, and when you pull up the sheet, you find those worlds of corals that surrealists in Paris will acknowledge as an allusion to the primitive landscape of Canary Islands. Domínguez, in a spontaneous way and at random, without using the rational, in that play, he talked to us about his homeland island, and this is a constant in his work. So it crosses all his creation by the disturbing presence of the island's nature. The calcomania, so putting ink and uncovering what has appeared in that play. Automatism is not the uncontrollable pulsation, but when you put all your energy where technique and spontaneity play their part. There's the technique learned by the painter, and then there is a product which is guided by chance. There is another of the calcomanias, lion bicycle, or these lions of Serie Grisou. With Marcel Gian, he achieves a very high quality calcomania technique to actually thank his mates from Gaceta del Arte. He will draw a dragon tree, which is open, like a can opener, that opens up the magazine. The dragon tree is a unique and singular tree that cannot be ignored by someone who walks by for the magnitude, for its how magnificent it is. So there are many people there wanting to take a photograph with the dragon tree, like identifying themselves with this tree as if it were a symbol of the island. Drago di Com is very well known and is still there. That would represent somehow like a genealogic tree. It's marvelous to think that a being was contemplated many, many hundreds of years ago by another person. It's like a kind of ramification that has been present in the memory of many generations of the island. This tree is full of a legendary world. See the blood of Drago at the center of the painting, that red kind of savia that they would say the inhabitants of the islands that would cure the Icelanders when they get harmed. So they would come on explorations, and in their logbooks they would also always take note of this species, the dragon tree, that they would say is the reminiscence of the dragon that used to take care of the golden apple in the garden of the Hesperides that they would situate in the Canary Islands. There's a legend enveloping the figure of the Canary dragon tree. Domínguez, in this painting of the 33, is very interesting how it's like there is a balustrade on the lower part of the painting that can also be roots, and suddenly it seems that he's leaning towards looking at the origin of the dreaming, the dragon that he so many times saw in his homeland island. But when he paints this dragon tree, he's not just painting one of those trees of Tacorante, but also shedding a light on the tree of the world. There is something like an universal character. He's universalizing and making these elements a myth, these elements touched by his painting. See how interesting that woman body open by a tin opener allows the origin of life and time. So to say, the portrait of the pianist Roma, of a very important. See how it talks about automatism somehow. This painting reminds us of a Dali painting. It could be said that it's an appropriation. It belongs to Pompidou Museum. We see that Dali situates ants on the piano, but however, see that Domínguez puts a dragon tree, and the umbilical cord is taken to the window, and it's going to establish a dialogue with the nature. The reading we could make is that the hand spread from the body in a kind of gestural automatism. What are they touching? The music that the nature is dictating them. This is an interrogation that poses the painting, and that leaves the response open. We see Roma with Intacoronte in the 33. We see Domínguez with Marcel Ferry, one of her very important loves. So female presence is very important in the life of Óscar. We will see images of personalities of Roma, Damska, Marcel Ferry, Maud Vonneau, which is a great creator, or with Marie-Laure Denoir. We have here the painting, the Dimanche, we have an exhibition, one of the main paintings of the collection there. This is a very disturbing, see how it's built. It's like a metonymic moment, small elements that form the whole, lips, fishes, leaves, flowers, that keep building the characters. We could say that the horizontal cat, this sheet of glass, is divided into walls, reality and desire. The world of the reality and of the imaginary, but we see that the two realities and worlds are equally imaginary. The iconographic quality of Domínguez, that power of his painting of images of paintings that are surprising. So we can see that the playful aspect is very present. The blaze of Parisian parks. See the kite made out of lips. This was a painting that he gave as a gift to her companion Marcel Ferry at that time. We could think is an elegy of love, a praise to love. Who could have a kite made out of lips in this way? So that duality, which is so present in her paintings, can be seen in other works, like this of the painting of the year 30. There is an stratigraphic cut. Something is submerged under the surface. There is an egg. An atom, a foundational element, the Aboriginal woman sleeping, those geological elements, those nets and cats that divide the bodies is a constant in his objects here. There is an exhibition of the 36 where we see some key paintings of Óscar of those years with Eduardo Westerdal, the exhibition of Aldan, Gaceta del Arte, and this Guanche Cave is very interesting, the interrogation on the Aboriginal and primitive wall. We see a character at the top of the painting who is fishing, the wall of the conscious, of the real, and that look towards what it's underground, on the underground, will have to do with the past, with the Aboriginal past. Interesting thing is that everything is happening at the same time. There is a present, there is a hidden memory represented by the metamorphosis of characters accumulated in viscosity, sustained by a column that are formulating a great question of the primitive time of the Canary Islands. One cave of the 35 that belongs to the collection of the Museum Reina Sofia is one of its key pieces. We can see Domínguez with some of his paintings, and undoubtedly one of the most important pieces of the exhibition is the sewing, the electrosexual sewing machine. It has been very much talked about. It's somehow a ritual. It depicts like desire, and how somehow the desire is represented in an excessive manner, in a dreamlike manner. All that wall of sinister wall, black humor that surrounds the formulation of sexuality and desire and human desire. So we see it's a disturbing painting that have had a lot of repercussion, because it pictorially represents the definition of d'Autrement set by Ducasse of the surrealist image, beauty as an encounter, disturbing and unexpected, of an umbrella and sewing machine over a dissection table. So it's the encounter between distant elements that configure a different image. Here we have another version of this painting. Somehow Domínguez, in his paintings of the 30s, he really works with the metamorphosis of elements. And we see this apotheosis of the can opener keys, and we see other painters like Roubat, which does this brûlage, these photographs, and control photographs of the fire, the image, like Domínguez does with Decalcomania. Here we have some images of the book Brisou, that, as Manuel Guigon said, wouldn't be ended up, this book. But it's a project that will see the light at the beginning of the 90s with Jean-Luc Mercier, but not in previous editions as this was foreseen. That book, Grisou, was prepared with his friend Marcel Guillan. We can see Domínguez with Marcel Guillan thinking and reflecting together with the object Paris, that we can see on the exhibition as well. Is an object that opens the word Paris and opens up the city and the word Paris with a can opener. Somehow the form he devotes to the desire of imagination. See that there is a clock which is no longer used to give the time, and see that violin form, that it is hiding an enigma inside the word of his beloved city that welcomed him. One of the paintings with the most iconographic power that we can see in the exhibition until 13th of October is a steamroller and the rose. We said that this image is a kind of metaphor of what could be the utopia. This is very fitting on nowadays. The steamroller could represent war, catastrophe, all the ill of the civilization that stops its course on the encounter of a rose, and a loving gesture, an embrace, It's like a formulation of a desire that catastrophe be interrupted by a peace gesture or by a simple glass of water or a rose. So arriving to this image from zero is surprising. See how nature recovers what has been stolen to him. There is vegetation, there's insects that are stopping the annihilating power. In the 38, see this apotheosis of the geological is a painting of the lithochronic period, lithochronos, stone and time. It is as if the mountains, the geological matter would reveal in its pure state, again, the rebellion of nature itself become a character in a sort of imminent manner. If something is happening in the painting in his pure state. In this type of pieces, as Gordon was for a contemporary painter of Domínguez and of the Surrealist group in the 39, had this apotheosis, geological apotheosis. From these years, on the magazine April in the 35 after war, you can see how these paintings are recovered, nostalgia of space from the MoMA or this surrealist composition, and become part of the magazine as examples of the best part of his painting. In 2023, we had the opportunity to make an exhibition in this way, the Primtem with other paintings in TEA, and we also included some stones in the galleries, which made us cause some problems in logistic terms, but we were able to bring them, this geological presence that attested all the geological world and that telluric component. One of the most emblematic paintings of Domínguez is Lancelot, today in New York, a great collection. Is moving this spiral in the manner of a black hole, as predicting a geological catastrophe. Or in a positive way, we could think of the birth of a continent, of an island in the middle of the Atlantic Sea. So it's something in the course of gestation. Then we see the presence of the geological, the tectonic, the island, which is present in his paintings in this stark manner. It's as if the painter, or as if the painter would detect the painter, that language with the same violence. And this painting of the 40s, we have that convulsive beauty. We were talking previously, convulsive beauty will be or not, or will not be. Surrealist beauty is not beautiful in the conventional sense of the thing of the term, but it invites us to think about the nightmare, about this bestiary spiral of images of insects that surprises for their strange character. These paintings in the 40s, also dialogue, and at the same time he does these jobs of these paintings of nets or webs, has to do with that war that is happening in Europe and in Paris, of the occupation, in which Domínguez will be present, which had this space in this painting, which is very interesting. It's a disturbing encounter between the spirals and the web and the net. When he was painting nets, someone said he would paint concentration camps. I think it's a very literal allusion, but it is true that there is a suffocating aspect. Those cutting elements that damage, that restrict the space. There is no single open space on the canvas that actually pose a question. So we have to review without lingering too much on the most important paintings in the oeuvre of Domínguez. We should think, and I start finishing, and we should think what would have happened if he would have attained the visa to get out from Marbella to New York, to Mexico, to America. We see him beside Elena Lang, Jabelin Van, Breton, Pinot, Remedios. In the year 40, 41, that exodus towards the south of Surrealists that are trying to keep the hope to reach American continent. He's doing this cosmic painting, this spiral and geological automatist painting. We see here in Marseille how he does the Freud letter in that game of surrealist letters in Marseille. However, Domínguez will not get that visa and will return to Paris, where we'll have that great encounter with Picasso. So there is a radical change in his painting. So we say Domínguez is many painters at the same time. He's looking at different ways of painting. And he said, I have again changed my way of painting. In this case, in the year 41, he confesses the Spaniards see each other almost daily and visit Picasso almost daily. And we can see that there is a clear influence. And this self-portrait is Picassian, but it is still an Óscar Domínguez allusion to black humor. So it's like the nose, which is like a canyon, is made out of fragments of pointing elements. You have to be out of yourself to be painted, to paint yourself in that way. It's a kind of minotaur. If we take it to our territory, Domínguez paints himself as a minotaur, but is the woman or the man of our times with his problems in his personal labyrinth, in his own universe. And I end up here with these images and see how Domínguez has imitated the gesture, the reflective gesture of Picasso, who is leaning on his hand, and there is a glimpse, and he's blinking an eye with the master with whom he shares like a father-son relationship. There is a 25-year difference. He's 25 years younger, and Picasso has considers him his favorite. So we get these descriptions of Domínguez, but it's true that there is a very interesting relationship. We must say that in the 38, before the war, there was already a relationship, and Domínguez is present in this case. That Picasso, in the help of Republican kids, he adheres, and many of the painters who are on exile in Paris try to help. But also in the 46, in January, in the exhibition of this Republic and Spain. At the Czech Republic, there is a cover of a drawing of Picasso, where many of the Spanish painters like Baltasar Lobo, Vélez Penosa, Flores are present, and he somehow takes part plainly in that moment where painters have that the aspiration of reaching the Spanish Republic so that Spain could be freed, which wouldn't actually occur. Dominic said that Domínguez was oblivion to any dialect, to any politics. I mean, didn't want to have anything to do with politics, but after learning about Domínguez, that is not true. Domínguez is very present in those exhibitions where Picasso is also present, helping the poets and the painters on the occupation years to these clandestine activities towards freedom. We finish here. This is the image of the catalog of the exhibition. By the way, it makes this design it has a very beautiful design where we can see the painter in his guise, Minotauro. Thank you very much for attending this conference. We have gone along what the critic has considered the most brilliant time of Óscar, the pinnacle of the imaginary.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Isidro, for your conference that will shed light to Óscar, on Óscar's parcours. His exhibition will be with us until the 13th of October. We invite you to visit the exhibition. And we're going to continue to conclude this first session of the seminar with a brief round table managed with Miguel López Ramiro, our artistic director, Emmanuel Guigon, and Isidro Hernández. Thank you for attending, and I leave the floor to these gentlemen for their reflections. Thank you, but we cannot hear the gentleman. Just 1 second. Oh. Thank you for attending. It's been spectacular, and we've gone into the dreamland of Domínguez through two gentlemen that know in the history of the arts, the Surrealism, and it's been special to contextualize the exhibition of Óscar Domínguez in such a brilliant manner, along with these two experts. Thank you to both of you for participating, and to Emmanuel for this brothering of these two museums. We are delighted to collaborate with you. To start this roundtable, I would like to open the dialogue to all of you attending, and even those of you attending through YouTube. I would love to open this dialogue by mentioning a concept that I think is interesting to discuss in different ways. You both addressed in your conference this duality that, Isidro, you mentioned when talking about Surrealism as a movement that can be considered as a city movement, urban, intellectual, elaborated, and this duality that I think personifies and embodies Domínguez. Emmanuel, he knows the Canary Islands as well. How Domínguez is transferring his nature, his own ADN, DNA, his own. He lives to Paris to work in representation of his father You mentioned concepts on the moving, on the fact of represent a magazine, introducing itself as to Adrien Breton as a Canary Island painter. The exhibition of 35 traveling in a suitcase from the Canaries to that incredible exhibition and this duality between urban and the surrounding, the natural, the nature. Domínguez maybe takes his paintings as a memory from his own origin, and the urban socialists and artists and surrealists could see that he was depicting something incorporated from the Canary Islands from his dreams. His what did he show to Domínguez in his atelier? What paintings? And the surprise of Breton was, you are a surrealist painter. That's innate in you. It comes from you. You are embedded from all these elements by the nature, by these territories, by these regions that are not urban regions, that transport us that's what poetry is looking for, and this pure state and painting. And this is the map that Emmanuel was showing us.
We could see that the center of the wall was Oceania, the regions that belong to that wall, where magic is possible, and that is surrounded by an imagination, a fantasy, and the time is a time different to that of the watches. I think Domínguez contributes in that manner, and I think that's the great question. That power, I would say, visionary power on the painting of Domínguez in a natural manner. So it's interesting how the childhood of the painter is already instilled in an iconography somehow.
I can answer in many ways, and it's essential for many artists to have to know where they come from. Even the Canary themes are more from the 30s, the Drago tree, the Drago from the Canary Islands. This painting is one of the masterpieces of the cosmic stages of Domínguez, close to Epiphtangui, and what you were going to mention about the expressionists, the abstract expressionists, and Lancelot is a great poet. Lancelot is also Lanzarote. Spinoza mentions these works in this, and it makes me think, because I'm preparing a retrospective Tanguy and his friends. His roots is La Bretagne. He's single, but he has many friends. He's Franco-American, and he's very essential in America. He's very important in US. Within the mythology of Tanguy, something very close to this imaginary, to these dreams about the Atlantic, about the islands, imaginary islands. In the Celtic mythology, you have the San Bolonton, the island. And I remember about this mythology of the Atlantic, mythology of the Atlantic. I participated, Robert Bonnet, the exhibitions in the 80s, in the opening of the CAM in the Canary Islands, in Las Palmas. It was complicated. They didn't have the tradition of having a modern art museum, even though they had great painters like Villares. But the Surrealism Bureau, and there was a whole world. And in the Canary Islands, in between these worlds and this imagery, after that, in 35, he wasn't in Breton in Canary, but he came back like Picasso. He never came back after 34 to Spain, despite willing to do his own museum in Barcelona, in his adoption city. with all his friends that he has here. But from 34, he never came back. Domínguez, it was his last trip just before the Civil War started. And he left at the beginning running. His poet, Surrealist López Tolés, is in prison at the time and in a ship. And he was thrown to the water in a bag. And I'm referring to the Canary Islands with their accent, with the physicality, which is very specific. That will allow us, it's important to discuss the Surrealism in Spain, in the Canary Islands, and the faction, the Surrealist faction, and the influences in Surrealism in the whole world, and in Spain as well, and the poetry of the generation of the 27, sorry. And there are painters in Zaragoza, in Madrid, in Galicia, etc. And there's this influence to stay in the afterword, the Tapies, and the first Antonio Saura that had a visit card, painter, surrealist, and he went to France like Domínguez to imitate André Breton. It's the next generation. In many reflections. It's very interesting. Yes.
That reference on the trip to America, the possibility of him arriving to America, and there is a whole story about the surrealists in exile in New York. They established a new canon in the new American painting, and how the Europeans, even when reaching North America, Mexico, Canada, and the United States, encounter a more primitive painting, primitive artifacts, and something mythical. That sort of inclination and inertia to find on the archaic things of other cultures, source of inspiration, is also transmitted on the exilio to North American. But I think that, well, yes, actually it provoked the apparition of a new Domínguez, the fact of not being able to leave Paris. Things happen as they happen, but there is a turning point. What would have happened if we all have that dilemma? What would have happened if I had taken that train, or that embrace we didn't give, or kiss we didn't give? It always happens. It's not only Domínguez, but also Victor Brauner and Jacques Minot. It were the youngest painters with less fame. The thing is that some got the visa and some others not. And Domínguez is the first to return to Paris. We see that Brauner stays somewhere near the Pyrenees, and Jacques Herol in the south of France, the castle of Sade. But Domínguez flies to Paris and stays there with the group of painters and poets, and carry out great work. So it becomes a great illustrator on the 41 and 43. A theme we haven't talked about is that world of poets that were doing these collective magazines. There are great illustrations at the time, but it is a great question. There is a turning point in his paint. He's doing a gestural automatism with a big strength. So I say, what would have happened is if he got a visa and arrived at the United States. So see how America is, that gestural automatism of Domínguez. Would it have arrived at any other port? What could have Domínguez offer us is a great question.
To answer, I don't know if Domínguez wished to go somewhere. Some people don't want to leave, like Picasso, despite being a painter of Guernica. He remained in Paris. He couldn't expose. exhibit his art, but he had a lot of money and he invited a lot of people to this theater, the Désir attribué par le queue, where those that live, if Tangoy lives, because he's with the American lady, Leonora Carrington. She's English and the parents are here and passing through these countries with Santander and also, with the hotel in Spain. And I think there is a case, it's from Chile, because all of these crossovers between the semi-abstract painting, this automatism that has a lot of influence on the informalism and on many things. All these worlds are different, but they are crossed. They cross. There is a crossroad of the pictures, the Oliva, the burn painting of Simon Bonfort, Domínguez, which is excellent as well. But there is a kingdom about the American painting, Masram, and Jackson Pollock and Rothko, and there is a linguistic impasse is Roberto Mata. Roberto Mata, in 1939, he paints his psychological morphologists that are Rothko and 5 years before Ashigorki, and is the same generation as Pollock. Wednesday, 29th of October, when I will take part in the seminar, as I mentioned, I will discuss about that. So it's very inspiring thinking that Domínguez could affect Pollock or Gottlieb or Rothko. It's very interesting to see there's all this crossover, transatlantic surrealist nature that reaches to from Mata. There's a 41 of the collection that comes from Telephonic, I think. 38.
Psicológicas que
is from the psychological morphology that is from the 38, 35. The second issue I want to comment on is the issue about the object. At some moments in your conference, Manuel, you have talked about the surrealist object made by Picasso himself, and that allusion you have made, Isidro, to Domínguez as a painter of the object. And it's true that all the paintings we have been able to see is like dream, an object created that finally is produced in 3 dimensions, but the configuration of those years, drawing objects that are presented like surrealist, has made me think of this duality. There was in Bilbao on an exhibition made that was entitled Things of Surrealism. There was the telephone of Dalí, that allusion of how surrealists find in the object something more. It's a reconfigurated object, and I would like very much to talk about the capacity of surrealism to generate on the object something, and jamais as a magical object that we don't have in the exhibition, but has that magic that belonged to Picasso from a gift by Domínguez. So I would like to talk about Jamais, which place could occupy. I think that surrealist object is of symbolic use that is useless, the same as the poetry. Is the materialization of poetry. Poetry gains shape and forms an object, an useless object. Domínguez, surrealist object, we couldn't conceive a surrealist object without the contribution of Domínguez. So Domínguez made a very important contribution to objects. We have many examples, some that has been distracted in unknown places, but it's true that the formulation is a materialization of poetry, a corp of body of the poetic, and this is fundamental, that Domínguez has added a watch. We see as the steam machine and the rose, the steam roller and the rose, that they are dropping and wrapped in kidnapping the rose from the vegetables from the sand, from the land, and they have robbed the time. It's a time that does not belong to the urban stress, to the wall of watches, but to a life which comes before. And it's a long history. Domínguez comes in the 34. It's a very Dalinian time.
In a quite brutal way, in a naive manner, but it's the time when in 33 starts, they become all the reflections about the object, like the 34 text today, now is the object that is being in all our reflection, but history is a lot older. Breton, in 17, his poems, in his text, Apollinaire, he took a text from there, he talks about the found objects, and he finds a strange book in a market in one of his strolls, and when he wakes up, he's disappeared, and I want to remake these objects, recreate them that I lost when I woke up, and I want to do a lot of exhibitions. He announced collections like a snowball with a tribute to Picasso. And there are many. Dali is very important, like a theorist, and Giacometti is enormous. Giacometti is a big populist, and in the Surrealism between 31, all the suspended bow until the invisible object that we've seen. In his case, these are creations, semi-abstract, but they are very symbolic because these are objects of unsatisfied wishes. Is like the edge menacing the eye, or a place where the ball doesn't go in his hole. Is the unsatisfied desire. They are not collage objects like in Man Ray case, like in the Dada time. And Domínguez, he did a lot of them, and these objects were great. And with all decacomanies, he did many. There was this exhibition, The Dreams, from Vittorio to Domínguez, and all the abstract painting. And Domínguez is here doing that, and doing collage, and with like a Caribbean gesture. Apollinaire spoke about the collage of Picasso, like an act de Chiriano, taking body parts to remake them in another manner. A very Afonso de, I can share an anecdote. The last question I wanted to make is this relation Picasso and Surrealism, and Apollinaire, you mentioned him, and as you are here as great expert in Surrealism, and talking about this confluence between Picasso and the Surrealists, and this Picasso was somebody not formal in the sense of joining movements, because he went beyond formalism. But I'm interested to know about this, about your views on this, because I think it's very interesting about this Surrealist Picasso, about this book you're writing, Emmanuel, about this. I've written many times about this matter. I'm going to gather all my ideas, all my reflections, because Breton mostly, and all the Surrealists, they cross Picasso from the beginning. Let's not forget that the first masterwork is the Demoiselle d'Amillon is the first masterpiece of Picasso. Nobody knew him at the time, and the first time that it was produced is in the December 24, and bought by Jacques Doucet. This from Brittany, he wrote many long letters so he could buy this masterwork, saying, "Oh, please, sir, this masterpiece, you need to move them in the streets of Paris like a virgin in a parade." So these are collectors Eluard is a collector, and they write about Picasso. And Picasso makes portraits of Breton in the first book, and there is a friendship that grows at this point. And he doesn't sign the manifesto, but he's in all these exhibitions, in all these events. And let's remember Marais and Picasso sitting, illustrating the number of cahiers d'art of 36, 35. Picasso, the poet, which is André Breton that discovers that publishes for the first time these Picasso poems. And in this anthology, he's a surrealist poet, Picasso. We did an exhibition and a book, Dictionary of Picasso as a Poet, and all is a crossroad. And Breton is very present, and he uses the same processes as Breton, collage, cutting pieces of paper to incorporate in his poems. And this is something that I invite you to check in this book, the relationship. And obviously during the Second World War, with this surrealist world semi-clandestine, where there were Spaniards like Manuel Viola and others, Brauner, and there were poets. Many have died, killed by the Nazis. But Picasso, the meetings took place in his house, and he used to pay. He used to cover the expenses, and he writes texts in this about him. He published the first, for the first time, the head of bull that I showed, and also the drawings in the curb. And he will paint like a child, like Raphael. When I was a child, he will paint us like Raphael. These are 4 fake drawings, like if he was a child, and he did that. The relations. He may not have a card, but he belonged to a group in a way, and he didn't sign the manifestos because he was Spanish. So, but he participated in all the activities.
Picasso.
Yes, somehow Picasso doesn't want to be surrealist. He accepts surrealism in an orthodox way. However, surrealism claims Picasso. So it's his career, but surrealism is not only a movement of the 20th century, but in that myriad of names that they make up and that they propose as their own tradition. Lichtenberg, Sade, Novalis, that would see the eyes of the dead of his love during the night, or is the forest surrealist? Picasso is also there. Surrealism claims the presence of Picasso, and we see him also in many magazines of those years. And the great interrogation question about what the master is doing, and his attitude of staying in Paris those years is a subversive act. So it belongs to that constellation of names. It happens the same with Miro. Even if he's most impertinent, you cannot compare one painter with another, because there is not a school of dream like Magritte. Magritte is a great painter. Magritte is not a painter. I'm not interested in that. It's not painted poetry, it's something enigmatic. Only 2 things about Picasso when he was in Canary Islands.
There are Canary poems from Picasso, from the Crucifixions, Albero, and there are other texts and other. I'm going to do advertising. So you come to Barcelona in November next year. We have an exhibition. We did it 30 years ago, where we're going to redo it about Alfred Jarret, the father of Bourret, of many items that was fascinating for the surrealists that did a scene scenario in 1938 during the Civil War, and also Ubu, that is very present in the creations of these regimes that we know, starting by US, Jarry, and surely Picasso knew Jarry. He had his own revolver, He knew by heart the works from Jarry. Like Miro, he had works from him. So we will have the chance from November to April next year, a great exhibition that will start with Donat, Gauguin, Toulouse-Lautrec, until Enrico Bay, Dubuffet, Heinrich, and Picasso, Miro, Matin, and others. We'll be there. Don't forget about that. I invite you. Wonderful. Well, I want to open the floor to the public, and through YouTube, if you want to intervene, we can get the question. I will be delighted to open the floor to you. Otherwise, we can see each other next Wednesday. Any questions?
Por YouTube.
I think it's not a question. I don't have enough knowledge, but I just can express give my thanks. I'm fascinated. First, I'm French by birth. I'm adopted, French adopted, and also North American, and everything we have talked here about how from multiple sources people and knowledge can unite is fascinating. What I have learned is that Óscar Domínguez, because I lived in the Canary Islands during 17 years in Tenerife, and I am really delighted because I have found myself in the black sand beaches, the millenarian dragon tree, that landscape, and the director of the Picasso Museum in Barcelona. I have been delighted because I've been many years in Spain and I don't know that museum in Barcelona. So if it's at the end of November, I'll have to return again and again to express how thankful I am, how the knowledge I have been organized. I was initially historian, but I'm an interpreter, because all the knowledge I have is through my job here as interpreter and translator. And again, it's been fascinating and only to give thanks. So thanks again. And we see you next Wednesday at the same time with other two speakers, and it will be very interesting to see you again. I think that the can opener with the painting of Domínguez has been incredible, what we have been able to learn and enjoy. Thank you very much and welcome again. Thanks for the invitation.